Hello, everyone. It is so good to be back for the latest episode of Lowdown and Low Code from the Analysis.Tech team. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dave Marcus, and today my co-host is Francis Carden. He'll be on in a second. And both of us are the newest members of the Analysis.Tech team. Feels like new, but we've been around in the team for a couple of months already. Just a bit of background on me. I spent many years at Microsoft in a range of roles in various product and corporate teams. Then joined K2, which is now part of Nintex, for around 10 years in a variety of roles before spending almost 5 years at UiPath. And we'll come back to that today because we're talking to Graham from UiPath and about UiPath. So like Ryan Duguid and Francis, I have a huge passion for and bring a low-code and enterprise automation perspective from a different point of view to the Analysis.Tech team. And I'm the kind of person who loves to get hands-on with the technology. So it's not just about listening to what vendors are saying. It's about kind of experiencing it for myself as well. If you've been watching this series of episodes, or if you're not and this is the first time, then please subscribe to our channel. If you enjoy what we're doing, like our stuff, respond to our LinkedIn posts with your own feedback and comments, and we hope to hear from you. Francis, it's always great to co-host this with me, and maybe you want to do a quick intro, and then we'll bring Graham into the session.
Hi, Graham. Hi again, Dave. So I'm Francis Carden, also of Analysis.Tech, obviously. My background is all about automation. I started automation when I was 17 years old. That's many moons ago. I started a software company, sold that here in the US, where I ended up staying. And then in 2005, I started one of the first RPA companies called OpenSpan. The company got acquired in 2016 by Pega. So you can see the full round trip here from RPA, automation generally, application development, through RPA, all the way through low code and no code. And so as I've gone through life, I've seen it all, been it all, worked with all the analysts all around the globe and competitors. And so interestingly, being on the other side of it now from an analyst perspective, I get the luxury of talking to other great leaders from other great companies. And we're really excited to have you with us today, Graham.
Awesome.
My pleasure.
So for those of you who don't know Graham, I'll do a really quick intro, and then he can talk a bit more about his background as well. Graham, welcome to the session today. Graham is the Chief Product Officer for UiPath. He'll talk more about that in a minute or two. And Graham, we're really happy to have you on today. This has been a little while in the planning. And getting you on is a good thing. I think that, we're really clear that UiPath has evolved significantly. And it would be really great if you could just provide us a bit of background to you, where you come from, sort of what led you to UiPath. And then for this particular purpose, I'd also like to kind of get a feel for how you've seen the UiPath product strategy and offerings evolved in the last 20 or so months since you've been with the company. And ultimately sort of what defines its differentiated value proposition in what feels like a pretty crowded market and makes it compelling for customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for both very much for being on the show. It's as you said, it's been a long time in coming. Dave, I feel like it's only been it's amazing. You said it was 20 months since I've been here at UiPath. That's true, coming up on 2 years. But it feels like just yesterday that we got a chance to see each other for the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a little bit about my background. I spent 20 years of my career at Microsoft. So I started out in Dynamics, where I got to meet and work with Satya Nadella really closely. Learned a lot from him. And then we both went over to Bing, where I spent actually the majority of my career, so 10 years in various different parts of Bing, working on everything from the front end to the back end, algorithms, and the marketplace algorithms design. My background, you asked where I came from. I came from the East Coast, actually, originally, and I studied auction theory of all things. I wrote my thesis on simulation for auction theory. So like, how the
Wow.
heck did I end up
Wow.
in RPA? But working in Bing, I got to sort of apply a lot of that mathematical background to trying to understand, human intent and try to bring them the most relevant results, and trying to help build great solutions that involve AI and machine learning. I was able to apply that in a variety of sort of incubation projects, trying to bring new products to market. And one of the new products that I got a chance to launch about 8 years ago was Microsoft Teams. And so for my last sort of stint at Microsoft, I was the leader of the product team for Microsoft Teams, from nothing to over 300 million users. And as you mentioned, Dave, about 2 years ago, during when I saw the sort of swarm of new activity around neural networks and generative AI coming to bear again, it became really clear that where I could, really get excited again about jumping back into AI was the sort of the nexus of where the deterministic, rules-based RPA world was combining with the more probabilistic world of generative AI. And that has been borne out really clearly, both with UiPath as well as the rest of the industry, where we're trying to solve new types of problems, new types of scenarios, more interesting, unstructured types of tasks, more complex tasks, and even autonomous sort of agentic AI, which is sort of the new bleeding edge where I see the industry on a really fast trajectory to go tackle. So I think we're really at an inflection point with this technology. We're still in the early innings, and in the Gartner hype cycle, we might be coming down off of that hype cycle to where people are really trying to learn some hard lessons about how best to apply AI and automation together to get real results. And so I'm super excited to be leading the product team here at UiPath. As part of my role, I own the vision, the strategy, and the roadmap for the product, as well as how we do things like partner with other companies like Microsoft, partner with companies like SAP, partner with many other critical infrastructure that we use to deliver those best results for our customers together, and ultimately, fulfill UiPath's vision to try to help accelerate human achievement in a very direct way.
Cool. Awesome. And so I guess just before I hand off to Francis, in the last 20 months or so, if I go back around that amount of time, and UiPath had a broad portfolio of products and capabilities, but many of them were sort of fairly standalone. There was the standalone RPA, standalone process mining, standalone other things. And so in the last 20 months or so, has that evolved?
Yeah. Sometimes it feels that way.
So in the last 20 months or so, how has that changed?
Yeah. So when I joined 2 years ago, you're absolutely right, Dave. Like it is just as true then as it is now that we're seeing the convergence of many of the different components to what I view is really required for an end-to-end automation platform to be successful. And that includes, the traditional UI automation through RPA, but also API automation, document understanding, natural language processing, some of the newest things around communications mining that we had purchased and acquired as a company a little while before. And you're right, we needed to sort of bring those experiences together so that a developer or an admin or an analyst could get a better sort of end-to-end view over what was possible to do with that automation. And what was possible for an administrator to make it feel more coherent, so that they had a single pane of glass to try to manage those experiences together. So we're still on that journey to bring those together to create a more unified developer experience, a more unified administrative experience, and a better way to sort of think about end-to-end processes as orchestrated by the UiPath platform in a way that you can really drive total business transformation or even AI-driven transformation on some of the newest innovations that I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about.
Cool. Marcus, I know you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, just a sort of a bit of background. So, Graham, you got 20 months into this, and I feel like I've got like 40 years, so it's more than even Dave exaggerated there. But
so I should ask you some questions, Francis, about to help us out here, huh?
That's what we do. So, yes, my door is always open, Graham, for that. But
Awesome.
listen, so the definition of RPA has got a bit higgledy-piggledy, I think, over the last few decades as well. What started off predominantly was UI automation. Traditionally, I think Gartner originally would term the phrase screen scraping, which went beyond mainframe screens into the Windows environment. But automating an as-is process, some of our listeners might say, well, hold on, why have we got RPA and low code? This is a low code, no code podcast. It's the lowdown on low code. I liken this as that, over the years, we've seen a lot of visual development environments. Here at Microsoft, we've seen a lot of those powerful drag and drop tools become automation tools in the sense that people can build their own things. And most RPA initiatives, therefore, built up over the last few decades over automating tasks, the tasks that workers would do sitting at their desktop, whether they're done automated at the desktop or they moved to a server, but ultimately an as-is process. Whereas low code, no code typically is reimagining that process and saying, what should that process be? And in fact, many of the RPA vendors, mine included, were swallowed up by some of the bigger, broader, intelligent automation, hyper automation, or as Gartner now called BOAT.
Right.
Those platform providers recognize exactly what you're saying, which is the need to bring these technologies together, and RPA will be a part of that. UiPath is coming out from a different direction and hasn't been swallowed up and is actually able to support its own growth and strategy. It's very strong in the RPA space. That goes without saying. UiPath done a phenomenal job. I know Dan's back at the helm as well. So we're going to see a lot of great things, I think, go on there. But is UiPath evolving to be, you talk about end-to-end processes, but there's end-to-end of as is and there's end-to-end of what should be. A lot of these processes, you talk about the auction era. I think of legacy is very auctionable, right? There's a lot of legacy sitting out there, old stuff that should probably not be auctioned off and should just be left. Is this something you can clearly define as the demarcation of as-is process versus the regeneration? Are you going to dip your toes into that? Or are you going to leave this to those other vendors? Where do you see and draw that line?
Yeah, I think there are two lessons to be learned from what we've seen maybe over the last 10 or 15 years. One is that there's just a reality that their legacy systems will continue to be there, and that business leaders are not going to accept an answer that says, hey, wait a minute, wait for me to go sit and think about this for a year before you get value out of the investments that you're making. So the in-place legacy systems are important. The in-place processes are important. The second thing is that a lot of the best ideas don't come from the business process transformation. They come from the people who are actually in these processes working on these things today. So I think, Francis, a little differently about the low code, no code, because it applies more than just like creating a form. Like, yes, you're right that like a lot of the BPM type vendors would think about, okay, we're going to start at the top and put some boxes and triangles and decisions points together, and then it'll pop out forms to try to help orchestrate that. But what low code actually has also done, when you apply it more broadly, is it democratizes this so that the people who are actually in the front lines can actually design some experiences for themselves. That applies both to forms still, but also to things like workflows. So especially with generative AI, where you can describe things in natural language, it's possible for you to go take a process that's already working in place. I'm thinking like a medical intake kind of form, and be able to plop that into something like Autopilot for developers in UiPath Studio, and that'll automatically generate not just the form itself, but the data model behind it and the workflow behind it in such a way that you can do a little bit of both, frankly, which is top-down thinking about what the process ought to be based on perhaps business best practices or things that, benchmarked kind of processes people think about. But also, and this is where I think UiPath is going to really differentiate, bottoms up from the real work that's actually happening. And so you think about, I think about the work that we've done over the last 5 years in terms of task mining and collect and process mining. So we have this data about how the business is really working and what the people are really doing during those business processes, joining those together in a way to help you really understand what's actually happening. Because then what you can do is you can make some of the, you can go after the low-hanging fruit a lot more easily when you see where the real bottlenecks are in an end-to-end process. You're not just, either doing ivory tower thinking or trying to go completely lift and shift to something brand new. You can do it in place.
Yeah, I agree to some of what you just said. I think that there is no doubt there is an opportunity in a market which UiPath is exploiting and doing fantastic with around those as-is process. But when you think about reimagining the process, and I know what you said there, if I pick your words out, is that those processes are okay, they just need to be automated. Well, often I see those processes are not okay. They were built over the last 20 to 30 years to take the way humans would intake a healthcare form or medical information, and then apply that into some kind of system or application. Whereas if you reimagine in a low-code, no-code environment that application doesn't need to be that way, there was never necessarily, no longer needs to be a human in the loop except for exceptions, then what that movement is trying to do is reimagine those end-to-end processes. And whilst you reimagine them, the place for RPA is prevalent because you're not going to do that overnight. Those systems are going to be around for a long time, but they are being end of life. Some of the systems are running on platforms that are just running out of steam. There's no experience or expertise. There's risk inherently in those applications. And so if we keep putting automation on top of that without being cognitive of the fact that we need to reimagine those processes, I think that's where we fit. But I think you guys are doing a lot to make it easier to do the as is. I'm more interested to see what you might be thinking, because as I said, those RPA vendors have been picked up by those low-code vendors that are trying to reimagine the processes. And I think I want to pick you up as well on this whole thing around Agentic, because I think
so Francis, let me just clarify one thing.
Yes.
My point of view is that you need to think about both.
Yeah, we're aligned.
You need to think about both. So it is many customers I talk to, they're interested in doing even AI transformation. Like, it's gone beyond digital transformation to AI driven transformation, where, to your point, they want to fundamentally rethink, like, what can we put our people to best use for? Like, they went to school not to fill out forms and to submit, to transform data. They went out to go solve a customer case or hard technical problems, or to, if a doctor is going to go provide the best customer care and think about the right way to bring a patient, to help a patient understand what's going on with them and lead them down the right choices for their health. They're not, they don't love having to go and transcribe notes and put them into different forms and put them into different, you need to think about how to fundamentally transform those workflows. And yet they also say, but we know that, like, right now, the biggest pain point is just getting this thing from point A to point B. So they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to go after the low-hanging fruit while they go think about transforming those business processes, which is why a complete solution to trying to do business transformation needs to support both. Because even if you do start with just the top-down approach, you want to incrementally improve it. It's not going to be one and done. You need to transform it over time.
Okay, so we're in violent agreement, so that's good, and I think that leads into the next question, or not, right? So this, you mentioned the term agentic and agentic AI, and I still struggle finding anyone that can really explain it to me, and I think that's because it's still sort of a work in progress, which is kind of strange for a term that's so prevalent.
Right.
Maybe you could help us understand a little bit more about what agentic AI means to UiPath. And on that same theme, I'm going to ask the question in a slightly different way. Do you see becoming more competitive to those low code, no code providers like ServiceNow and SAP who've got their RPA products, Pega, they've got those RPA products embedded into those reimagining the process technologies? Or is it something you're quite happy just to continue to be collaborative around? So, sorry, two deep questions for you there before I hand back to David.
Yeah, I mean, well, the second one I'll take first, actually, because we understand that if our product strategy is first and foremost to enable people to at the C level to be able to really, excuse me, transform their business and run these end-to-end processes. And we know that if you're thinking about end-to-end processes like order to cash, procure to pay, those are the traditional ones. But if you're thinking about customer onboarding, employee hire to retire, and case management and things like that, these journeys for an employee, a journey for a customer, transcend systems of record, systems of engagement, things like productivity, document tools. And the thing that, like the third leg of the stool for driving transformation, includes both of those key investments, as well as a system of automation to bring it together. Because the work will absolutely cross those best-in-class point solutions. And given that that's the case, we invest very strategically in partnerships with the likes of SAP that you probably know about, and have great connectors with a plethora of companies like Oracle and ServiceNow and Dynamics and others, in order to make sure that those end-to-end journeys can be seamless to the extent that it's possible. So it's really critical to our strategy to partner really well with those companies. And like the expanded partnership with SAP is certainly a good example of exactly that. To your first question, and maybe I could ask you to refine it just a little bit. I think your first question about agentic.
What does it mean to UiPath?
What does it mean to UiPath?
Yeah. What does that term mean? Define it like you're selling it to me. What do I buy if I buy agentic AI from UiPath?
I'll do my best, Francis. I think that, look, the reality is that agentic is still very much in flux in terms of what it means to different. What I can tell you is that some of what our customers have done with our platform that I think fulfills some of the key value prop that agentic could bring. I think agentic is sort of a recognition that AI and what it can do is getting better and better, and that the role of AI in doing work is expanding. It's expanding to do different types of tasks that were not previously done before. And they're starting to make more complex decisions. And in the spectrum of agency, we've already been seeing how AI has been plugged into either automations or to other applications over the last 10 years. So we have robots. Those robots we've given them skills to do things like basic NLP a while ago. We gave them ability to understand what's in documents through document understanding. We gave them the ability to understand screens and what's on those screens. We've given them the ability to understand what's in email and communications data. We have just introduced a set of generative AI activities that now help you summarize and generate content, to understand language and to translate, to be able to do named entity recognition and even image detection through building our own models, as well as using best-in-class models from other providers. And as you think about the evolution of where those AI skills, if you will, we're giving to the robots, the next evolution of that are something we call large action models. So trying to determine, for instance, whether or not, what the next best decision ought to be, what the next best action should be. Let me make this a little more concrete. Customer care. In customer care, it's a many-step process. And one of the things that our customers have very capably done is be able to route particular issues to the right person or to the right. So looking at a shared email inbox and deciding, oh, this is an accounting issue, so we're going to send it to the accounting department. Or it's an accounting issue and we're going to send it to an accounting workflow. Those basic routing decisions are now pretty high accuracy in terms of what you can do. And it removes one of the most tedious processes that humans don't want to do, and people are spending a lot of money and time trying to do. The next kind of key decision might be extracting key information from an email. So, what's the issue that the customer wants, or what are they ordering, or what is their address that they're changing to? Those are things that are now very much possible with document understanding models and with communication mining models or with generative models. The next step beyond that might be, okay, how do I solve this customer's problem? So a very common pattern that I'm sure you know is being able to say, okay, because the customer is complaining that their refrigerator broke or something like that, we're going to go to the knowledge base. We're going to go to the CRM system. We're going to go to the repair database and say, oh, we can ask the robot to come back and to give a support agent critical information that says, hey, I think I know what the problem is that the customer is talking about. I think that we have a part that's in stock that we could send to them. And here's a time that we could send a service agent out and give them a recommendation to say, is this the right thing that you want to do? So that human in the loop piece is still there, so that the agent validates that that's the right action, but they're working with the agent so that they don't have to do all of the things I just described manually. So it's a very, very long-winded way of saying agents, I think, are becoming more autonomous. They're making more of these decisions or recommendations with humans in the loop, so that more of these processes, more of these steps can be autonomous.
Yeah, I think I'll hand back to Dave now. But I think just to wrap up on that point, I think it is a grey area, because a lot of the technologies you talk about, it comes back down to, do we do that on existing legacy data, or do we enable us? So, for instance, my refrigerator can actually communicate back to Samsung and tell them that this is what it needs to order the parts. So I think it's getting very exciting and interesting for all of the vendors at the same time, and it's who gets to accelerate to play in this field the fastest. So Dave, back to you. You only had a couple more questions to follow up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Graham, I guess, because this question is asked a lot, I'll ask it directly to you anyway. And I'll ask it in the context of your history with Microsoft, as well as sort of where you are today. So, there is a view in the world that says that, this historic approach to UI automation is kind of passé. It's been done. It's now commoditized. Why would I go out to a mainstream player like a UiPath when, I can just get the stuff from a generalized platform player? And also, so there's that, just your view on the role of UI automation in this broader need for transformation. And then secondly, as someone who has a strong history and relationship with Microsoft, how do you see what they are doing in this overall low-code world playing out, and what does that mean from a competitive point of view? It'd be helpful just getting your insight into that.
Yeah, sure. So I think, and this is it's a good follow-up from Francis' question too. People have asked, hey, what's the role of RPA going forward? How does AI or generative AI or agentic AI kind of change that? I think our point of view on this is very, very clear based on what customers are telling us, is that there's a clear role for rules-based and deterministic decisions that need to be made. There are key decisions that you do not want an AI to hallucinate. You can't trust it to make a hiring decision, cutting a check over $10,000. You want to make sure you've got humans in or on the loop. And for those kinds of things where you need reliability and trust are super important. Having policies, having rules, and having a governance framework that you can rely on is super important. And so for those kinds of deterministic steps, there's a clear role for business logic and RPA to live on. And what UiPath is doing is trying to complement that with the best of what AI can do in ways that I just described a few of. I think there's a lot, like Francis mentioned, a great thing where those agents can now even become proactive. They don't have to wait for someone to ask for your refrigerator that your refrigerator, it can just tell, and the agent can come in and do a lot of that work proactively, so that the customer doesn't even know that, like, they have a solution before they even know they have a problem. Great stuff. The way that Daniel and I have thought about this, it's sort of like left brain, right brain kind of, and there's a clear role in evolutionary biology in the human brain for both types of thinking in both kinds of tasks. And so the truly creative, the more flexible and adaptive work, that's where AI, it has a role to play, but it needs to be married with a more deterministic, rules-based, policy-based framework, in fact, for you to operate both together. And so, there is still very strong demand for RPA and automation more broadly. And the current state of that AI is simply not where it needs to be yet for you for the level of what you're willing to give to AI is at the point where it obviates the need for most of what RPA can do today. It's just a fact that, like, they're very, in fact, what I've seen more of is our customers are actually doing brand new scenarios that were previously not even possible to do with automation because AI is there. So it's been a real tailwind for many of our customers in expanding the set of use cases beyond the back end repetitive to some of the more front end flexible and adaptive work that needs to be done in customer care and support and IT help desk and marketing, creating more personalized marketing materials. There are many of these cases where customers are doing that kind of automation today that simply wasn't possible before. But it's not something, you don't need something as both as flexible, but also as error prone as AI to do your invoice processing or to do your end of quarter financial reconciliation. That's just not particularly appropriate for that kind of technology, at least not today. So as it relates to Microsoft, Dave, I think what they're doing with Copilot is fantastic. Like, I love what they've done to make the user interfaces for the systems of engagement for like Office, in Teams, my previous baby, and Outlook and Excel and others. Like, it's just a much more natural user interface to have chat be part of that. I think the chat metaphor is going to reach its a natural limit. It's it's a bit of like everything looks like a nail when you have a hammer. I remember, we all probably remember when the Amazon Echo came out, and we thought that we were going to be telling our Echo to do everything from shopping to ordering trips and things like that. But it's really only used today for things like setting timers and getting music and going through recipes. So those systems of engagement get a lot better with natural user interfaces, but they still don't allow you to take action and complete work across the systems that you need to. And so we just released a plugin for Copilot. You may have seen where UiPath's Autopilot can actually be the action engine and hand off certain intents from Copilot into Autopilot. And the reason that that's important is, Copilot just does, like the Microsoft endpoints, they have an access to a certain part of your data, which is great. Helps you construct an email, synthesize data, get meeting summary and transcript information. But when you want to start to take action on that outside of that particular ecosystem, it's inevitable that you need help with that. And so I see sort of this the handoff from Copilot to Autopilot and to other actions that someone needs to take is the natural evolution of our relationship with Microsoft, especially as it relates to Copilot.
Okay. Actions. Yeah.
So, Graham, just to kind of conclude, I did want to come back a little to sort of where UiPath is headed. If you mentioned at the beginning that, there's this move from essentially doing a lot of work around intelligently automating and improving tasks of various types, all the way through to sort of thinking about the end-to-end experience, whether you look at it from a journey point of view or from some other perspective. And so in the next while, does that mean that your competitive marketplace, the players that you compete with moving forward, change a little? So, when we think about this from a sort of a low code perspective, it's all about, how can this technology be appropriately applied to building, running, and managing mainstream enterprise class end-to-end business applications? The type of thing that I may go to a Pega for, or an Appian, or IBM, or ServiceNow, or someone else like that. Is there a point in time at which you expect that people should be able to come to UiPath to solve the same problem?
Well, I certainly think, Dave, as we start to think and provide more capabilities around process orchestration, that includes things like modeling processes, and modeling and designing processes, being able to visualize your current process and optimize it to proactively provide recommendations on the basis of where you see things like bottlenecks. That's very clearly a focus of ours. But we're not going to be as comprehensive as some of those companies you mentioned in terms of some of those capabilities. But I think that it's sort of a natural evolution of automation if we're thinking about end-to-end processes to be able to make some of those decisions, as Francis said before, sort of top down. So I think we will start to, you'll see us invest more in things like modeling that'll get us closer to that. But those are, a lot of the solutions you just mentioned are ones that are, that have a lot more advanced capabilities there. That will take us some time to think about whether our customers really want it. And
well, kudos to you.
Daniel
Kudos
is really
to
taking us.
UiPath.
Sorry, say again.
I was going to say kudos to UiPath because you're the top vendor that hasn't been acquired to achieve those goals you talk about. Whereas everyone else, that's SSNC with acquiring Blue Prism and Pega acquiring OpenSpan and Appian and Microsoft acquiring their RPA products. So it's going to be exciting times as you take this very successful engine and move up that chain. I think that's exciting times.
Yeah, there will certainly be some more overlap there than there has been in the past, because you're absolutely right that mostly people have used us for task automation. And as they start thinking about stitching those tasks together and driving business process transformation, we will start to see more overlap with some of those folks. But again, I think I recognize that we are not going to be, we need to partner with them first and foremost. And that's what's going to has made us successful and will continue to make us successful. And then we're going to listen to customers as Daniel has taken the reins again. He's been really clear that we're going to be customer focused. So I can give you a bunch of good examples of where our customers have asked us specifically to go try to solve some of these problems in ways that we haven't been able to before, and where now they will with things like process orchestration and with AI agents.
Dave and I saw some of that yesterday. It was pretty impressive. So yeah, good stuff.
Awesome. Graham, thanks again for the time today. This has been super helpful as always. Look forward to continuing to work with you, as we go through this. This is a really interesting space that continues to evolve radically. And one of the things we're finding right now is there's a lot of confusion out there. This AI world is creating some of that confusion. All of the marketing spin from many players is creating a lot of confusion.
And some of the analysts.
Yeah, right. And this sort of realistic type approach that is pragmatic to, what can be done and should be done, I think is a really good way of being able to think about things. So, again, thanks for the time today. Really appreciate it and look forward to working with you. And again, for everyone listening on the call today, if you like this, please let us know. Please share it, and please provide any commentary and feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you don't like us, let us know as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks, Graham.
Francis. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Bye all.